Sabrina was overwhelmed, unsure of whether to laugh or cry. For months, she and Daphne had thought their parents abandoned them, only to find out they had been kidnapped. Rescuing them had provided little comfort, since they were both victims of a magical spell. Now that obstacle was almost hurdled too. Hope, wonder, and joy were building in her heart, threatening to explode like a shaken bottle of soda pop. The feelings were mirrored in the faces of her family as well. Daphne, despite being soaked, was grinning ear to ear. Uncle Jake's fatigue seemed to melt away as he waved for the girls to follow him. They crossed the bridge to get to the hotel and rushed into the busy lobby. The Hotel Cipriani was even more impressive than the scarecrows had led them to believe. The floors were made from priceless marble. Opulent arches framed the doors, and beautiful sculptures decorated the lobby. The ceiling hung so high above them, Sabrina wondered if clouds ever drifted into the hotel. Dozens of bellhops rushed to and fro, carrying expensive luggage and helping guests their rooms. Unfortunately, the group's arrival did not go unnoticed, and a chubby, gray-haired man in a black suit approached them. His face was full of disapproval. Sabrina realized how odd they looked for such an elegant place. Her sister dripping wet, and her uncle in his wrinkled blue jeans and bizarre overcoat. "Posso Artovi," he said. "I'm sorry, we don't speak Italian," Uncle Jake said. His comment caused the man's frowning eyes to deepen. "Americans," he huffed. "Are you lost?" "No, we're looking for a guest of the hotel," Uncle Jake said. "What's this guest's name?" "Well, this is going to sound silly, but her name is Goldilocks," Sabrina said, bracing herself for a laugh. However, the man didn't even blink. "You are friends with Miss Locks?" he said. Uncle Jake nodded. "Yes, we're very close." The hotel manager seemed reluctant. "Listen, pal," Uncle Jake said. "Are you going to help us find her, or shall we just start knocking on doors?" The man's eyes widened in horror. "Take the elevators along the east wall. She's on the third floor, suite 311. "Thank you," Daphne said. The group took an elevator to the third floor and followed the hallways until they found the room. "This is it," Daphne said, taking Sabrina's hand. "I can't wait to talk to Mom and Dad. They're going to be surprised by how much we've grown." "You want to do the honors?" Uncle Jake asked her, gesturing to the door. Sabrina nodded. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door. It drifted open at her touch. The lock and door jamb was splintered and broken. The grim looked at one another suspicious. Uncle Jake frowned, pulled a magic wand from his overcoat, and stepped through the doorway. Nothing else seemed to be disturbed in the front room. Nothing in the front room, but there were doors leading to others. "Hello?" Jake called out. There was no answer, but a moment later, Sabrina heard the sound of breaking glass. Uncle Jake held up his hand to motion for everyone to be quiet. They heard a door slam and followed the sound, walking through the beautiful suite filled with elegant furniture, paintings, and linens. When they got to a closed door, their uncle turned in the doorknob and pushed the door open. "Goldie, are you okay?" Just then, a tall man in a black jacket and pants appeared from behind the door. He was wearing a black motorcycle helmet that disguised his identity. On his chest was a horrible mask, with a handprint in red paint. The paint ran down and dripped like blood. The girls had seen the mark many times, but never so far from home. It was the mark of the Scarlet Hand. The mysterious man punched Uncle Jake hard in the face and pushed past the girls and out of the room. As soon as he was gone, Sabrina and Daphne helped their uncle to his feet. "That wasn't very cool," her uncle complained as he rubbed his jaw. "Who was that?" Sabrina asked. "Beats me," Uncle Jake said. "Where's Goldilocks?" They searched the other rooms, but there was no sign of the blonde beetle or anyone else for that matter. "I think she left in a hurry," Uncle Jake said. "Her clothes and suitcase are still in the closet." Suddenly, Sabrina heard a loud engine start. Everyone rushed out to the balcony to find its source. The masked villain was on the narrow sidewalk below the hotel, sitting atop a black motorcycle. He revved his engine, sending a loud rumbling throughout the neighborhood, and sped along the edge of the canal. Sabrina wondered where he was racing until she spotted Goldilocks drifting down the waterway in a gondola. The motorcyclist was following her. "She's in trouble," Daphne said. "Come on," Uncle Jake cried, and led the children out into the hall. They bypassed the elevator for the fastest stairs. They ran through the lobby, causing the manager to cross his arms with a harumph, and then they charged through the front doors out into the city. Outside, Sabrina spotted Goldilocks. She was surprised at the distance the boat had traveled in such a short time. "What now?" she asked, but Daphne had already sprung into action. She descended a flight of wooden steps and jumped into an empty gondola. A moment later, she had the barge pole and was pushing away from the dock, giving the rest of the group only seconds to climb aboard. Uncle Jake took the boat, and after a few awkward attempts, the group was floating down the canal into pursuit of the beautiful woman. Sabrina heard angry shouts from behind them and turned to see a red-faced gondolier race to the steps and shake his fist at the boat and its occupants. Daphne waved at the son apologetically. "Sorry, this is an emergency." Uncle Jake pushed harder and harder with the pole, trying to catch up with Goldilocks. All the while, the man on the motorcycle putted along like a mechanical tiger stalking its lunch. When he ran off the sidewalk, he simply steered into one of the most beautiful buildings and one of the city's beautiful bridges and crossed to the other side of the street. His erratic behavior turned the heads of tourists and locals alike, as the sidewalks are built for pedestrians only. On more than one occasion, he forced an unlucky person to leap into the water to avoid being run over. The commotion was causing problems in the canal too. Boats steered out of the way to avoid colliding, causing a traffic jam. In a matter of seconds, the family's chase had come to a complete halt. "What do we do now?" Sabrina said, watching Goldilocks' boat at the head of the line. She was still drifting along undeterred. Uncle Jake set the pole in the boat. "We improvise," he said, stepping onto the boat next to theirs. Daphne was right behind him, followed by Sabrina. They moved from one boat to the next, followed by Sabrina. They moved from one boat to the next, careful not to capsize each new vessel. Soon they were making good progress and closing the gap between themselves and Goldilocks. Daphne called out to the woman when they were just 3 boats away. Goldilocks turned to them, but attention was quickly distracted. The motorcyclist in black raced up a bridge directly over the canal and parked his bike. The bridge was under construction, and several large stones intended for the repairs were stacked nearby. The motorcyclist heaved one off the bridge and onto Goldilocks' bus. His aim was either incredible or incredibly lucky. The heavy stone blasted through the bottom of the boat, and water started pouring through the hole like a geyser. Startled, the gondolier leaped into the water, leaving Goldilocks to fend for herself. Goldilocks, however, stood up calmly, glanced around as if searching for someone, and then did something so odd that Sabrina wondered if the woman was insane. She began chirping and squawking at a pigeon resting on the bridge. The bird seemed just as surprised by the woman's request, and by the woman's noises as Sabrina and flew into the air. "What was all that about?" Sabrina asked, but before anyone could answer, a flock of pigeons returned, casting an enormous shadow over the canal. They dove to Goldilocks' boat and dug their tiny talons into her clothes. Together they lifted her out of the boat, their wings flapping furiously. Goldilocks sailed high above the canals and over the hotels and other buildings. Sabrina gaped as she watched the woman disappear into the horizon. "Did you see that?" It was like she was talking to those birds. They seemed to understand her, Sabrina said. Yeah, I forgot about that, Uncle Jake said. Goldilocks can talk to animals. Sabrina scanned the bridge for the motorcyclist, but it was gone. All she heard was sound of his engine fading in the distance. Who was that guy anyway? Daphne asked as their boat bumped into the gondola of some Japanese honeymooners. I don't know, Uncle Jake said, but now I know why Goldie keeps moving around so much. He's chasing her. She's in danger. When the family returned home, there was no time to relax or even discuss what had just happened. Judge Hatter had moved the trial up by 3 hours. If they didn't leave for the courthouse right away, they would miss the day's proceedings. Granny ushered them all downstairs and into the family car. Uncle Jake started the massive jalopy, and after a good 10 minutes of knocks and rattles and several loud backfires, the vehicle was on the road headed toward the courthouse. The courtroom was more packed than the day before, with many fresh faces in the crowd. Stay close, people, Barto insisted as he eyed the spectators suspiciously. Sabrina watched her sister roll her eyes at the little security car, but said nothing. Her attention was focused on Snow White, whom she spotted near the door. Miss White smiled when they entered, and Sabrina waved to her. Granny thanked her for coming, though their conversation was short and stiff. Even Briar Rose was there. She kissed Uncle Jake on the cheek, and he returned the gesture by kissing the palm of her hand. They all squeezed into seats. Robert and Little John had warned them that the trial would be more difficult the same day, and they weren't kidding. Bluebeard continued his prosecution of Mr. Candace by calling witnesses that had been victimized by the wolf hundreds of years before. There was a steady stream of talking lambs, pigs, and assorted forest creatures. Little Bo Peep, complete with staff and flock, complained that she had actually lost her sheep, but a wolf had eaten them. And just as he had done the previous day, Judge Hatter refused to allow Robin and Little John a chance to ask their own questions. Nottingham and Mayor Hart watched the proceedings with amused expressions, openly cackling whenever the family's lawyers were prevented from defending Mr. Candace. The day dragged on, and by late afternoon, Sabrina wondered if there was a citizen left in Fairyport Landing whom the wolf had not tried to devour. She watched Candace, waiting for an outburst from him. If he were to escape, there would be nothing from him. There would be nothing Nottingham and the mayor's court soldiers could do to stop him. Does the prosecution have any more witnesses today? Judge Hatter asked. We are finished for today, Your Honor, Bluebeard said. Robin leaped up. We have a few witnesses we'd like to question. Very well, Judge Hatter said as he got to his feet. Let me in the morning. He strode off the courtroom, oblivious to Robin and Little John's angry shouts. This is outrageous! Little John bellowed, knocking over his chair and startling many of the onlookers. Nottingham, standing nearby, laughed heartily. Yes, it is, isn't it? The sheriff said cheerfully. Little John looked like he might lunge at Nottingham, but Robin Hood held him back. He's not worth the headache, my large friend. Nottingham laughed even harder as he joined Mayor Hart, and together they left the courtroom. A crowd of onlookers started to follow, and Bluebeard rushed forward, shoving people out of his way. He grabbed Snow White by the wrist before she could leave. Sabrina couldn't hear what he was saying to her, but Miss White looked nervous and pale. Daphne noticed them. That seems to be the end of this video. I'll see you later. Goodbye.